Welcome on into BKL Nightly. This is the Let's Talk Ball edition. I'm Thad Brown. He is Carl Jones. Every single week, we take a look at the All-22 video from every Bills game, go over the X's and O's, talk about things we liked, things we didn't like. Against the Texans, this discussion is going to very much fall into the latter category. Carl, let's start with the offense because that is absolutely the thing that has been occupying everybody's mind since that game happened on Thursday, and I think particularly with the offensive line. We both have a lot of things to talk about. I want to start with the point you want to make, not necessarily about the individual players, but the larger scheme the Bills have been employing most of the year and why teams are starting to find cracks in it.
Yeah, so since Joe Brady has been the offensive coordinator dating back to the back half of the 2023 season, the Bills have been a team, for those at home, a 5-0 protection plan. And what that means is we have our 5 big boys up front, and we're not really giving them much chip help or much help from the backfield, tight ends, whatever the case may be. It's you 5 guys up front, and Josh Allen will be responsible for all of the free runners, the unedited attention. That's on Josh to decipher that. And I believe that like 90% of their dropbacks, that's what they've been. And I think this year we're starting to see cracks in that. Let's ignore the Houston game for a second here. That Falcons game, they blitzed them, I believe, over 50% of their dropbacks, and a lot of them were unblocked. There were a lot of stuff where, like, guys you were like, whoa, Deion Dawkins is wrong here. But we don't know who's wrong because it's a 5-0 world, so you have no idea what's the protection. So I think that their protection plan, even beyond them just losing one-on-one, hasn't been sound this year. I'm sure you guys have seen some version of this stat, but I read this earlier this week. According to Next Gen, Josh Allen is taking sacks at a much higher rate than any other season since his rookie year. And unless you think that Josh Allen has somehow forgot how to maneuver a pocket or that he's lost athleticism, that's not good. How about another one? His pressure to sack ratio is as worst as it's been since his rookie year. And for those at home, one of Josh Allen's superpowers is his ability to not get sacked. It's what makes him so elite. It's why he extends plays at a rate that's better than probably most quarterbacks in NFL history. This year, he's not able to scamper away. He's getting sacked on those plays. It was, I believe, over 50% Thursday night. So I don't think it's just the guys losing up front. Obviously, Thursday was the worst case scenario of that. But I think the plan itself, that goes from the OC down to the O-line coach and maybe even the guys executing said plan out there, it's been exposed to a certain extent this season.
How do you expose 5-0, or what's also called big-on-big protection, when I think, obviously, the reason the Bills use it a lot is because they feel like they're going to win a lot with the 5 guys up front. And up until the last few weeks, that has been the case. To kind of put a stat to underline, some of the things you're talking about in terms of pressure, just simply using sacks. Josh Allen was sacked 14 times in 16 games last year. He's been sacked 14 times in the last 4 games this year, 20 times in the last 6 games. He had 1 3-sack game all last year. He's got 5 this year. Why is this breaking down? Because it's the same 5 guys who should still be just as effective blocking as they were last year.
I think that teams are starting to get a beat on it. I think that this stuff goes in cycles. Everything is cyclical in this football world. I think back to, let's look at the Los Angeles Rams for a second here. Do you remember the Super Bowl run where they were in this 5-0 world where they told Matt Stafford, hey, I need you to drop back and be Peyton Manning every single play. I want you to just go boom, boom, boom and make a play. And after a while, if y'all remember, the Rams O-line wasn't as great. Matt Stafford started to get beat up a little bit more. And then, boom, all of a sudden, Sean McVay said, we got to get ahead of the curve and maybe start adding some different stuff. Another example for you guys. Do you remember the Super Bowl where the famous overtime play where there was an unblocked guy at Brock Purdy in overtime? That was another example of this 5-0 protection world, and Steve Spagnuolo did a phenomenal job of scheming up a play in that specific moment. So these things are cyclical, and they get more film on you, and they are able to take advantage of those miscues. This isn't to say there's an issue inherently with that protection scheme. I mean, all the great teams in the NFL run it to a certain extent, but I think they're starting to figure out some of the tendencies on the Buffalo Bills with their protection plan, and that's disconcerting to see because the guys up front are objectively really, really good.
And have been most of the year. Although in this game, it was apparent right away that they were not going to have the same kind of advantage they usually do. Most of the sacks happened in the last 3 quarters of the game, but the first 2 snaps of the game, Spencer Brown loses both of them to Will Anderson. And look, Will Anderson is ridiculous. Danielle Hunter is ridiculous. We talked a lot about that going into this game. One of the other concerns that you brought up before we started recording here is that, yeah, the protection scheme might not have worked but it wasn't like it was a surprise either on film or how early the problems were happening in this game because, again, right from the jump, it should have been clear what the Bills normally do was not going to be effective against the Texans.
I understand. We all prideful. We all believe like, hey, and think about your job at home, the Buffalo Bills, wherever the case may be. What I do, I'm going to lean my hat on that and rely on that. So if the Buffalo Bills are saying, you know what, that was just one drive, we trust our guys to fix it. Okay, after that second drive, y'all should have been like, you know what, we need to start giving these bad boys some help because they can't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance. And if you want to keep your $500 million quarterback safe and sound, let's start protecting him. According to Next Gen, the first half, how many times do you think those players were chipped? Once each.
I'm going to say once each. Okay.
Once each.
I was going to say 4 times or less. Yeah.
Once each. Now, the number went up. Not crazy. I think Will Anderson was still only chipped 5 times in the second half. But that's just unacceptable when they were clearly losing. And I get it. You're prideful. You don't want to tell Deion Dawkins, hey, man, it's not your day. Let's give you some help. Hey, Spence, I listen. I know that you're a Pro Bowl type of guy, but today's not your day. I know those conversations aren't easy. It's the inverse when you're a cornerback and that DC walk up to you and say, hey, buddy,
safety over the top.
Yeah, you getting safety over the top. I'm sorry. It's the same type of conversation, but those are the tough conversations that are needed and adjustments that you have to make because I don't care what routes they were running downfield and they weren't great. They stood no chance because they were just getting whooped up front.
How much of this too, forget about not being or being too prideful to change. How much of is it that the coordinator and or the offense is not prepared to run that much with chip help? Because like you said, they've never done it in the past.
I mean, they are by far and the highest in the NFL. I think the only team that's even close is the Eagles, who once again this year have struggled in terms of pass protection issues, and the offensive line has not looked as good as this year. And I don't think it's because the players fell off. They only lost Mekhi Beckman, and I don't think he's some all-world beater. So yeah, exactly. So I think that it's a tough spot, and I understand the Bills. If you at home, you're probably thinking, no, this Bills offensive line isn't good. They are. They just ran into 2 cyborgs off the edge, some D tackles that had some vengeance, Tim Settle, and they really, really played their heads off. And if you're the Buffalo Bills, I understand that you're prideful. You may not have been prepared for it, but you guys get paid a lot of money to adjust on the fly.
Speaking of adjusting on the fly, let's move over to Joe Brady, because I actually want to make the case that I think the overall game plan was more good than bad. Obviously, we've pointed out a lot of the bad. And also, individually, I thought the 4th and 1 run call in the fourth quarter was also a bad call. But early in this game, the scripted stuff seemed very effective. First 3 drives of the game, the Bills score 9 points, roll up 158 yards of total offense. The Texans, on average, give up about 250 a game. So they were on pace to obliterate that. And maybe, Carl, the early game success on the scoreboard and on the stat sheet was another reason why the Bills didn't bother to go to chip help sooner, because they felt like they were still being effective. Before you answer that, I just want to finish with, between the scripted stuff that Brady, again, had only 3 days to prepare, and the hook and ladder, which was an incredible call, no matter how you slice it, would have gone down as one of the great calls ever if the Bills win the game. I did think this offensive coordinator game on the whole, if you make a list and you put pros and cons and check good and bad all the way through, I think you'd have more checks on the pro side. Not by a lot, but by a little.
We talked about this off air a little bit. I don't know how many OCs win that game Thursday. I truly don't. Maybe you want to talk about McVays of the world, Shanahan's of the world, Ben Johnson, sure. But if you're consistently losing that bad up front, what does Sean McDermott always say? The game is won and lost in the trenches. And even with the chip help, and I know we haven't touched on it here, but I would like to do it now. For those at home who just say, oh, let's just chip every single play. If you were to take a tight end and a running back every single play and give those guys help, you only have a couple eligibles down the field up against defensive backs who are already really good. So it's not as simple as like, oh, Joe Brady just give chip help every single play. I think he should have did it more. I'm not absolving him of blame, but I do think that it's much easier said than done in that scenario. But I'm with you. I do think that there are some areas that he should have improved on. But once again, there's not much you can do when we're losing up front. This is still football at the end of the day. This isn't basketball where I can hit threes if if the insides is killing me or whatever.
One of the analogies I've been using all week is that if I am playing chess and I'm playing against you and you're a grandmaster, the best in the world, But if all your pieces can only move like a pawn, I'm probably still going to beat you. And that's kind of what Joe Brady was facing in this game. He just did not have the pieces that can make the moves. And speaking of that, we talked a little last week when Dalton Kincaid went out of the game injured, how noticeable it was, especially with the tight ends, that there was not the athleticism that the Bills had, obviously, with Kincaid. You think that even in this game, that popped up again, and going forward, it kind of showed the amount of need the Bills have for number 86.
They have zero juice in the passing game. Negative. All of their explosive plays are screens. All of them. Or rub routes where that wheels down the sideline where they're rubbing guys and getting guys open. Manufacturing explosives, if we'll use that word. Dalton Kincaid, for all of his flaws as a player, he still can't be a full-time tight end because of his inability to block in line. But what he does provide is someone who is a mismatch in the passing game up against linebackers and even big safeties. You look now, if you're the Tennessee Titans, wrong team. The Houston Texans, excuse me. Do you think that you have more juice in Derek Stingley? Do you think you got more juice in Kamari Lassiter? Even their backup nickel, Jalen Petrie, was out. Khalil Shakir wasn't running past him. Like, Dalton Kincaid at least provides that. And he's also someone that Josh Allen trusts, which popped up a lot in this game Thursday night, where there were some guys open and maybe Josh Allen would have had to make some anticipatory throws, but he didn't really trust that guy to go win and bring it in.
Josh Allen has never really been an anticipatory thrower, not a lot. It's just not his game, for a number of reasons. I was just explaining this to someone in the office today that, look, there's two things for that. Number one, his arm is such a cannon. Balls that other quarterbacks have to get out earlier, Josh can still fit in. And number two, if he doesn't want to try a small window, he can tuck it and scramble and run to the sideline and do a whirly bird and throw a ball from behind his back. And it's probably going to work.
Right.
But because of that, he has not maybe developed or relied upon okay, I see this opening up, I'm reading the coverage, and if I throw when the receiver's still behind the defensive back, it will work. He doesn't do that a lot. So you do lose that part of the game, even if the overall, equation is still positive to the Bills' side. Let's talk a little more about Josh Allen in this game too, because he was, again, a guy that, as we've kind of talked about, maybe not is the problem, but he's the symptom of the problem. You've got an infection and it's causing a headache. Josh Allen is the headache. If you fix the headache, you're not fixing the infection, but the headache is becoming a part of the problem too.
I know the buzzword of the past 5 days or so has been mesh, and I'm going to bring it up one last time and then dead it. That play where he got hurt, I believe, on either the second drive of the game.
Second drive, yeah.
It was a mesh concept, and mesh is probably best against man coverage, and it was man. But your indicators in mesh and who you're trying to throw to are the guys meshing, running across from each other down the field. But against zone, there's also a player who drops over the middle, and that's the zone beater in mesh. Well, the Texans ran man, and boy, they schemed it up. They was all over it. But Josh Palmer was wide open over the ball, and Josh Allen, for whatever reason, tucked it and tried to run and got himself hurt. He's just not really either seeing it well, not trusting those down the field. And situations like that, when you're playing against a nasty defense, by the way, I want to give them their flowers. I love the way they play defense. I'm so jealous of them. They play football like the way my dad go. We like, y'all young pups don't play the way we used to play. You know what, Pops? That's Houston Texans got you covered. But in all seriousness, Josh Allen, just the trust he has with his guys down the field, that's not Dalton Kincaid, and then he's just also not seeing it well, is also a problem, or like you said, a symptom of the issues they have at hand.
Yeah, he had another one on the last drive before the hook and ladder play where he dropped back, and I don't know what he was looking at, but just decided to try and scramble out of a clean pocket. In fact, when I chart pressures, I looked at that play like 3 times. There's no pressure there. I put the pressure on the quarterback, number 17, because he's running himself into his own problems. That was a play where if he had sat there and let it develop, I think he's going to find a receiver down the field. Instead, he tries to turn and make something happen and just walks into a sack. That's where we are with Josh Allen right now, that there's so little trust that he is creating his own negative plays with mistakes in terms of just not being comfortable in the pocket. Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball here. Couple different things. Let's start with the run D, though. Where is your number one concern with the Bills' run defense after a game where they weren't terrible, but relative to the opponent, they were terrible?
I want to start this conversation off by just giving Woody flowers and just talking about what he did, okay?
Woody marks his flowers, you mean?
See, I'm all messed up. This game was so long ago. I'm thinking about Zay Flowers on my fantasy team.
You know what? The way he looked in that game, you can call him Woody Flowers if you want.
You feel me? But Woody Marks, the Texans running back from Thursday night, has 74 rushing yards versus the Bills. He forced 5 missed tackles and 84 yards after contact. He only had 74 rushing yards, and 84 of them were after contact. Those are all career highs. Okay, Carl, you're killing them. All right, whatever. Go back and watch those plays, and it is so apparent if we're going to rank the issues on the Bills' run defense right now. Defensive tackle is by far and away the biggest issue. There are too many plays where if you've heard the phrase, oh, the D tackles are in the linebackers' laps. Nah, the Bills situation right now, the D tackles are in the safeties' laps. It's just not good. And Deion Walker has his flashes, but there were situations Thursday night where he's getting double teamed and moved off his spot. You're supposed to anchor down and hold your gap and hold on for dear life. Jordan Phillips struggled with that regard. TJ Sanders, I know he's at defensive end out of position a little bit, but you at least be able to hold up on a double team. Everyone besides Daquan Jones really struggled against double teams for that matter, Thursday night, where it's literally big boy football. We putting 4 paws on you and we dare you to get off of a block. And it's just hard to live down in and down out if your D tackles are 6 yards down the field.
And that's the thing. It's exactly the point I was going to make. The double teams, what they do is create so much space at the line of scrimmage that your running back just has to move forward. He's going to get 3 yards, which kind of blows me away that Woody Marks at 84 of his 74 yards. I know it sounds weird, but that's the way it went. After contact, it kind of talks to how bad the tackling was, which is the point I want to make. This continues to be an issue over and over and over. The one that really stands out, obviously, is the Taron Jackson missed tackle on the 4th and 1 play. And I want to run this by you quick. I know he's supposed to make that tackle. He is still a nickelback. Do we give him any leeway for the fact that he's the smaller guy in the situation?
Yes, but so that goes to one of 2 things. Either A, he shouldn't be out there in that situation where it is a clear and obvious rundown, or B, we need to get our head across and make sure that we're not doing a shoulder tap. He's not dragging us. If we get our head across, then we're going to have a much better job of stonewalling him. But it's a tough tackle to make. I'm not going to sit up here and say that it's easy, but I've seen Taron make that play before. The problem is, though, before seems like it's not coming back, and that's where it's like, dang, I don't know how to really judge him in that situation.
I'm with you on the defensive tackles, though. The Bills just aren't getting enough. We've talked about that for going on 3 years now. That other than Daquan Jones, there really isn't enough help there. Deion Walker, like you said, has moments, but it's not consistent enough. And the other guys, Larry Ogunjobi will, at this point, I know what his game is. His game is 2 solid swim moves a game for a TFL, and then other than that, just really not being effective. We talked about Taron Johnson a little bit. Let's talk about him and Cam Lewis together, because nickel corner, maybe even a month ago, I would have put a bullet on it and said that is an absolute strength. We talked about Taron Johnson. He has not had a good year for him. I think he's still probably above average. Now, Cam Lewis in the last 3 weeks has made some of the worst missed tackles. He probably is allowed, 50 to 70 yards after contact by missing tackles by himself. And this is a guy that I thought really had played a good few games up through the Chiefs game. Where's the Bills' concern, and where should it be when it comes to nickel corner right now?
It's probably not super high because of the concern that linebacker and D tackle, but relative to their expectations and the production they've gotten from that position, it should be high because that's been a position that's been a lock the key away. We know we're getting week in and week out. I remember 2-3 years ago, CeeDee Lamb came up in Orchard Park where he was having almost a triple crown season, and Taron Johnson said, "Excuse me, locksmith, no key. You on Taron Johnson Island the whole game." And I think back to those performances. Obviously, it's hard to play at that elite level year in and year out, but that's the caliber of player that you have out there, and it allows everything else to work in tandem on defense. When we can have a player who is a $190 at it on a good day and fit the C gap downhill and stop before a 2-yard gain, but also in the same token, in this game, he's able to, in theory, on the whiteboard, guard a Christian Kirk, guard a Jaden Higgins, guard a Jalen Noel. And the fact that it's more so, oh, man, I don't know if it's as easy as just put 7 on the whiteboard and just allow him to go man on man here. That's where it's a little tough because that changes the whole structure of how you want to play defense.
To that point, real quick, how jarring was that missed tackle? Because I wanted to at least put it out there to see how much of maybe the criticism was unwarranted with Taron Johnson missing that play. But like you said, that's a play he probably made 2 years ago, 19 times out of 20. How much of a worry is there with him right now?
I think that play is worrisome in the fact that we may be seeing the other side of the hill with Taron. I still think it's a tough play to make. Don't get it twisted. Like, you are kind of flat-footed and he's coming downhill, and I believe he was 4th and 2 or maybe 2.5.
4th and 1.5.
Fourth and 1.5. Yeah. So it's still not an easy play to make, but it's a play that I've seen Seven make for so many years, and for that not to happen, I'm like, I think if this is the hill, we're starting to come down a little bit.
Speaking of over the hill, Joey Bosa has been a guy that we thought would be on that end. He's had a really good year. In this game, you threw out some stats. I talked about it later. It seemed like he was nowhere. Greg Rousseau, too. Both of us think, after rewatching the game, that actually Bosa and Rousseau were at least more impactful than it seemed.
Yeah, Greg Rousseau had some quick wins in the past game. He had some wins where he threw a guy to the ground, little quick run and shed. Davis Mills got it out quick, so good on him and the Texans OC, I believe, Nick Haley, for having them prepared up against. I mean, the Texans O-line isn't good, so shout out to them for just knowing what they have, KYP, they're knowing their personnel and executing that. But I thought, at least for Greg's perspective, I'll let you talk about Joe. He played solid, and when you pay a guy $20 million, you expect more than solid. But I know the number I threw out there on my XV. For those who didn't see, the Bills had a 16% pressure rate. That is the lowest number the Texans have allowed in over 2 seasons. Obviously bad. I think that's somewhat skewed because of how they track their data and also how quickly Davis Mills got rid of the ball.
Yeah, to that point, too, Joey Bosa, the stat, I think you posted it, Trent Brown, who was the offensive tackle against Bosa, faced him and allegedly through 21 snaps did not allow a single pressure. I had him with at a minimum of 3, and there was one where it looked like Matt Milano blitzed up the middle, forced Davis Mills to back up, and backed into Joey Bosa's path, but he was winning there. At the very least, I know Joey Bosa forced a holding penalty out of this game too, so that might not be a pressure, but it is damn sure a win. And there were multiple times where the Bills were allowing options down the field, and the pass rush took away Davis Mills' comfortability to make a play. Davis Mills was bad. He missed a number of plays on his own. I mean, really, in the first half, the Bills allowed, 20 points? It should have been 31. It should have easily been 10 or 11 more because of the pass coverage. But I don't think Joey Bosa or Greg Rousseau were good. And one thing to keep in mind with Bosa, since the wrist injury, he has played exclusively at left defensive end. I looked up at Pro Football Focus, 100% of his snaps left side. Most of the time, he plays on the right side with Greg Rousseau on the left. So both guys are in their lesser played spot. I don't want to call it weaker because these guys should be able to rush from both sides. Can't make an excuse, but it is certainly a thing that is happening right now. I want to ask you a few questions about specific plays that were backbreakers for the Bills. Number one, the first touchdown to Christian Kirk. He got absolutely wide open. Carl, it looked like Max Hairston, the rookie, made a very much rookie mistake.
Yeah, it was based off what we can tell on film. It looked like just a three deep, 3 under coverage where you have a deep middle safety. I know it's relative. There's no deep safety in the red zone, but you have a safety in the middle of the field and then 2 corners on the outside. It just looked like Max jumped the flat route, and I know it's going to look like it's Terrence's fault. In my opinion, based off what I see, that's just a rookie biting the cheese and not seeing the flag route that's coming right behind him.
And after the play, it looked like Taron Johnson looked immediately at 31 with the "what are you doing? This is not the right play" kind of thing. The second one, really maybe the backbreaker the whole first half, was the 33-yarder to Christian Kirk, the catch and run over the middle. That coverage was, I thought, a little concerning, or at least it was a little confusing for me to discern. How does A, Kirk get open in front of Taron Johnson like he does? And then B, why is the middle of the field so wide for him to run for the other 30 yards?
Yeah, the Bills in this coverage, they're going to play a half field man at the top of the screen, and I believe it's a version of cover 4 at the bottom. So for those at home, we're going to ignore the top of the screen. Those guys do not exist on the whiteboard. But at the bottom of the screen, you're going to have Terrell Bernard in the middle, Taron Johnson in the flat, and then Max and whoever the safety was deep. Christian Kirk is going to come from the
far right side.
And he's going to run an in route. So Taron jumps it at first because I'm in the flat defender, it's in front of me, but then he crosses his face, and the running back leaks out late. And once again, Terrell Bernard is in the middle of the field in this scenario. And I guess TB just eyes goes right to the running back leaking out late.
To the right, too. So outside where the receiver is.
Outside where, and crosses his face. So it looks like it's Taron's man. It looks like it's Taron's man because Taron has been on him, because that's just being a good player is. You grab guys in your zone. Let's just not guard a space here. But TB, you cannot let him cross your face in that scenario here. He bit the cheese on the running back flicking, running out real quick. And that's 3 yards to the crib. Those are stuff that you can't have. That doesn't have nothing to do with guys just being better than you. That's mental plays up top. We can't have that.
Speaking of that, then the touchdown at the end of the half, it looks like Cam Lewis is jumping around at the 5, where really the only play with 8 seconds to go in the half is to the end zone. Why is Cam Lewis out there at the 5? What should he be doing?
Yeah, he should be staying flat-footed and making sure that no route can cross his face. At cornerback, the easiest route that we can give up in the red zone is a slant because it's a throw that you and I can make. It's an easy 3-4 yard route down the field, and you don't allow that in any circumstance. There is not one circumstance where you allow a receiver to cross your face, and Cam Lewis jumped to the outside. It was a solid route by Jaden Higgins. I think the rookie has played better over the last few weeks, but nonetheless, you expect your technique to win out on every single rep, and that's just not okay. We want to make sure that if he does want to run inside, he's going to run over the top of me, and that would have been ideal in that scenario because Cole Bishop was right behind him.
With the linebackers quickly, Terrell Bernard was active. I thought he was okay. Then he got hurt, left about halfway through this game. Dorian Williams, though, stuck out to you in the wrong way.
Yeah, there were a couple plays where I thought he should have just got downhill and triggered. We talked about those duo runs where, hey, they're getting double teamed across the board. And I know that it is hard to just trigger all the time, but think about, guys, everyone at home, just think for a second. If there are double teams across the board for even a half of a second, that means as a backer, you're free. And the really good linebackers are able to trigger. And I know the Bills DTs don't do a good job of staying double, because they get pushed. But there were a few situations, in my opinion, where Dorian Williams could have triggered and made a play for a TFL, but instead he waited a split second too late. And by the time he got there, the tackle was able to get a little paw on him, push him out of the spot, and it turned a probably negative 2-yard loss into like a 6 or 7 yard gain.
The best thing Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard did all night was triggering exactly that. They had a number of plays where they blew through gaps to stop runs or at least slow them down. All right, a lot of talk over the mini bye here about what the Bills do going forward. How do you fix this? I know look, if we had the answers, they'd be running us right down to one Bills drive right now to tell Sean McDermott exactly what the plan is. But in your opinion, what should the Bills do differently, either side of the ball, to improve things from what we've seen the last month and a half or so where the Bills have lost 4 of 7?
I think I'll go with offense because that's the side of the ball that I think that's going to be the driving force to them, hopefully, and potentially winning a Super Bowl championship. I think they need to be better at in-game adjustments. I think there's too many times where, like, if something happens or goes awry, they aren't able to pivot quick enough, whether that is the pass protection scheme, whether that is a guy goes down and everything just looks out of sorts, whether it is a James Cook not getting involved in certain scenarios or not riding the hot hand, or in certain situations, as we saw this week, riding the hot hand too much to the point where he came out of the game when you needed him out there. So I do think the one thing that I want to touch on, we got to be malleable. We got to be able to adjust. You hear about it all the time with offensive coordinators and play callers where they see something on the sideline and say, hey, let's make it shake. You've talked about it ad nauseum. Brady's really good, and when something's working, he'll he'll keep going to it. No doubt about it. I just want to see him pivot because, listen, defensive coaches get paid too. They know your fastball. Yep. It's not, you can't throw 103 all the time. Sometimes you're going to have your 98. Can you be able to pivot and throw that changeup, throw that curve, throw that slider? And I think that that's something that could raise the floor a little bit more for the Buffalo Bills, because the ceiling is what it is based off of the talent, but the floor bottoms out way too much for my liking. And I think if you are a little bit more unpredictable, it should help out in that regard.
Speaking of that, here are 3 quick-hitting changes I'd like to see the Bills' passing game do. Number 1, more Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer. To be honest, I want to see a passing game that features Josh Palmer. He's the guy that I like on this team in terms of winning individually on his own, and too often he's the second or third guy in a progression or a clear-out guy. I want to see him be the focus of this offense. Number 2, more deep shots. I know it's probably not going to work, but at least throw it out there. Make it a threat. Josh Allen's got a great arm. Use it. The number 1 thing I want to see, though, quicker developing routes. A big problem with mesh and some of the other things the Bills did in this game is it took so dang long. Number 1, the pressure got there. But number 2, because Josh Allen doesn't believe in it, he looks at it and say, man, that ain't going to work, and moves off it so fast. If you're going to lose, at least lose fast so Josh can say, okay, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working. You want to do everybody eats. You got to give everybody a chance. There were too many plays in this game where Josh Allen had one read and never got to anything else, not because he had pressure, but because he didn't believe in anything. So enough with the slow developing routes. Give Josh Allen at least information quickly. If he can at least trust that he knows who's losing, I think he can be more effective as a quarterback.
I'm right with you with Josh and Elijah. Stop routes, digs, comebacks, quick slants. Those are the 2 guys who are your best separators, quote unquote. Yes. Feed them bad boys and let them at least try to cook to a certain extent.
And Elijah Moore has been good enough the last few weeks that just separately on his own, I want to see 18 get more opportunities. He's not a savior, right, but working around the edges, helping this out, I think he can be effective. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of BKL Nightly Let's Talk Ball. Remember, you can always find this show at YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and, of course, WIVB Plus and Rochester First as well. Carl and I will be back next week talking about the Bills and the Steelers. Until then, thanks very much for watching BKL Nightly. For Carl, I'm Thad. We'll see you next week.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.